And although we're talking about junior golf development, they are both great coaches to all ages and all skill levels. So it's not like that's all they do. A little bit of background on just from some simple stuff for Christy here. PGA Director of Instruction, Spanish Oaks Golf Club, Bee Cave, Texas, just on the west side of Austin. Some of her accolades are listed best in state by Golf Digest. She is a U.S. Kids Master Teacher. She won the STPGA Youth Player Development Chapter Award 3 times. And in 2018, she was the Section Harvey Penick Teacher of the Year. A couple of her certifications are Titleist Performance Institute, U.S. Kids Golf, Flight Scope, Aimpoint Express. And Christy can probably add some more of those in there later if she wishes. Brech Spradley, PGA Director of Instruction, Barton Creek Golf Academy, also there on the west side of Austin. Brech has also been listed best in state by Golf Digest, recent addition to Golf Magazine's top 100 list. Well done, Brech.
Thank you.
And in 2015, he was the Harvey Penick Teacher of the Year. Some of Brech's certifications are also Titleist Performance Institute, Golf Site, K-Vest, Sand Putt Lab, Aimpoint Express. So, without further ado, Christy, Brech, thanks for being here, and let's get after it.
I just have a quick question, Alan. Are you okay if we share our screen at any point?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
You do what you want.
Brech, you want to go or you want me to start?
Go ahead.
Perfect. All right. Thanks y'all for being here. I'm excited. This is my first time kind of sharing on my end. I've attended a billion Zoom meetings, as I'm guessing you guys have too over the past couple of years. This is the way of education currently. You know, I missed the PGA show. There weren't a lot of education opportunities that I was interested in, so I didn't go to the show this year. I had COVID anyway, so I wouldn't have been there either way. Alan said I'm at Spanish Oaks. It's a private golf club in Austin, and I have some stakeholders, obviously our owners that I'm accountable to, but I have our members that I have to work with and provide programming. So I do provide programming across the board, all levels, all ages, beginners, elite players, elite adults. We have a lot of high-speed mid-am players that I coach. But our focus today is junior golf, and I'm going to tell you that's in my wheelhouse. I mean, if I could choose my perfect job, it would be coaching kids all day, every day. There's none of my players who are older adults here. Didn't hear me say that. So let's keep it to ourselves. I would say that my focus, and I'm assuming that everyone's on this call to gain ideas on how to improve their junior programming, make more money, have more kids in it, how to organize their time, train coaches. Anyway, so I'm going to share what I do. My coaching program is ages 4 to infinity. Our kids focus is 4 to, I'd say, 14, 15. And then I'm going to be perfectly honest, I have a few elite juniors, but when they get to the level of wanting to compete on high school teams, compete at the next level, try and play in college, mini tours, that isn't what I do every day. Can I do it every day? Of course, but my focus after school, that time frame, is dedicated to kids, our families and whatnot. So I don't have time for the after school kids who, hey coach, I'm trying to get into this AJGA qualifier. So this is why Brech and I in this call together is really helpful, because I actually farm them out to Brech. He's too busy. He can't take a lot of them. So he's got a great staff. So we're shipping them, we're getting them over to his academy so he can help them get to the next level. I have kids, and I'm so excited to see this. I have kids who started in my program when they were 7 who are in Brech's stable now. And I think having that kind of mindset of I don't have to have everybody all the time, and I can't do the best I can with everybody, but I know where I'm good and I know how to keep the kids involved in golf. And I think that's the key, is golf is hard. And I think the majority of junior programs are start at the top and work your way down versus start at the beginning and work your way up. I'm going to share my screen real quick because I want to show you a couple of things that over my time, I've been at Spanish Oak since 2012. So 10 years I've been doing this in the same facility. I'm gonna pop in real quick. And there's a picture that I want to share. This guy right here, right? This is what a traditional junior golf program looks like. And we've all been there and we all do it. Some of us do it now. I'm not going to say I don't have a line of kids on the range hitting balls, but that's not what I do anymore. I've done enough training. I've spent my years in my free time searching out how kids learn. And does a 5-year-old learn the same way as a 12-year-old? Absolutely not. A 12-year-old is in a middle school program, sitting at a desk all day and changing classes. And a 5-year-old is in kindergarten and they're running around like crazy and it's chaos. That's the way golf is for them too. They can't stand on the range and fall in love with the game in this picture. And not in my opinion. Now, the golf kids, think about your programs right now. When you have 12 kids coming to your program, how many of them are golf kids? Like golf kids, love golf, play golf every weekend, or are they new and just learning and their parents dumped them off and said, here, go learn about golf. It's my job to keep them in it. And that's my passion. And that's all I want to do is if I can expose them to golf and they say, hey, I want to do this again. The picture that I showed you had, that's what my programs look like 7 years ago. And I noticed season after season, I wasn't getting the same kids back. I was getting new kids every year, but I wasn't retaining them class to class or season to season. And that sparked my interest in why aren't they coming back? Well, I had to understand why, and that was because it wasn't fun. The 2 reasons kids do something, anything, football, baseball, chess, gymnastics, whatever, it's because it's fun to them, it's interesting, and their friends do it. And I realized that, one of those 2 things wasn't happening. And so down the rabbit hole I went. I'm gonna share my screen again. And this is where my programming has evolved to. Some of you might know a little bit about my programming. I'm gonna turn the sound off just so you can kind of see without the sound because it gets kind of crazy. Let me get it up there bigger so you see it. Is that going? Okay. I think, I don't know, maybe not. Whoops. Again, I don't do this every day, so I was just playing around this morning. Oh, that's frustrating. Sorry, y'all. I'll get back to it. Let me get out of my sharing my screen. And then, am I in the call still? There we go. Found it. Okay. Maybe that'll play up in the corner. I'm not sure. But I've developed programming to where 6-year-olds and 12-year-olds can play together, golf kids with non-golf kids, and making sure that we develop game-based training or game-like training, golf-adjacent training, that to where they're getting the driver, the chipping, the putting, all the aspects of successful golf, but in a way that's not intimidating to them. Everybody in here plays golf, and you know how intimidating it is for us as adults. Well, we have to make it fun, exciting, and it's not just traditional golf programming games. Think about tic-tac-toe as an example. That's a golf kid game. The elite, the better chipper of the group is always going to win in tic-tac-toe. How can we create games? Oh, my video is playing, but I'm not going to mess it up. How can we create games where every skill level can compete together and have fun together and gain friendship together without having to be the best all the time? It's a long rabbit hole and it's really deep, but that's how I've gained attrition and keeping my kids coming back. Because again, what percent of your program of those kids is going to play high school golf, go on to college golf? It's less than 1%. So if you have 10 kids in your program and you only know one of them is going to make it, do you tailor the program to that specific kid, or do you tailor it to the kids who all you're trying to do is keep them in it? One shot is going to bring them back and they're going to hang out with their friends and they're going to love it and go home and tell mom and dad that they love golf, versus oh, this is too hard. This isn't fun. I don't want to go back. We've had those kids, and that's not the, I'm not trying to reach the golf kids. I'm not tailoring it. I'm trying to reach all kids. So, I've got a long list. I sat up because I've had some time to think about what we're doing here today. I've been sitting, isolated in a room, and I have a long list. But I think it's important that even by asking questions, and that's what I did, is to ask questions to people who have successful programs and who are changing it, and not being afraid to, because sometimes parents show up to my programs and they're like, what is going on? This doesn't look like golf. But easing their minds, if you let them know that you have the best interests of their kids in mind, and you understand how a 7-year-old learns versus a 12-year-old, they trust you and believe in you. And then when their kid goes home and they want to come back season after season after season, that's a game changer, in my opinion. So I'm going to shoot it to Brech, but please also, if you guys have any questions during what we're talking about, I'm happy to answer them throughout, and then also after the fact as well.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Christy, that was a great talk about early phase junior development. So important, that ignition phase. So yeah, a little bit about me. I know Alan introduced us, but I'm the owner operator of the Barton Creek Golf Academy. I've been there 21 years now. And for about 9 years, I worked for Chuck Cook there. And then, and we were all employed. It was Chuck Cook Golf Academy. And then I had the opportunity, when he left, to buy the business from the previous owners. And now the current owners, I just rolled in the same type of deal. I've got a staff of 5 regular teachers with me. I also contract with the club with some of the assistants that help, and I have over the years, and just a couple guys that I also teach, mini tour players help. So I think I gave 12 1099s out this past year. So I had a few people helping me, but 5 regulars. So we do have a lot going on our menu. We have a junior program. I still want to get some of my guys out to Spanish Oaks, Christy, and kind of watch you with the young kids. We have a younger group that we teach, and I know what Christy's doing is great, and we can certainly glean a lot from that. So my staff teaches some after school programs, the age 6 to 8, we call level 1, and then level 2 is 9 to 11, and then our level 3 is 12 to 14. So we do that, and then we have our summer programs. And then, of course, all of our adult programs as well. But specifically, since Christy's going with the kind of the younger age group, I'll talk a little bit more about that junior that's wanting to play high school and college golf, and maybe how I would go about my process of how I would go along those lines of developing that junior, and just kind of give you a snippet of what I might do with that. And so I look at it from, if a junior comes to me and says, okay, and again, depending on where they are on that spectrum, I want to play high school and college golf and maybe beyond. I kind of say, okay, this is like the 5 prongs of being a star performer. What are the things I need to kind of talk to this junior about and help manage? And those 5 prongs of the star would be, they have to have the skill. So that's the skill development. That's the coaching, the teaching, the on-course, all the stuff that goes with the skill. They have to have the fitness component, the golf fitness component. I outsource a lot of that, but we'll do a little bit of that in-house, but most of that's outsourced. They need to have, most of them, and again, not everybody's going to have the same degree of everything, but they need to have a pretty strong mental game, and what are they doing in that area? They have to have the equipment, the tools of the trade that are always fitting, and it becomes even more important that equipment gets a little bit more specialized as they get to that level of competition. And then the 5th thing, which is the periphery of everything, what's going on socially, what's going on with the family and school and all that needs to be managed that can affect that. So that's kind of what I would call the 5 prongs of the star. And so those are the things I'm kind of trying to look at and manage. And then a typical kind of process I would go through would be what I would call the who am I working with? What am I going to work on them? What am I going to do with them? So it's who, what, when am I going to, what's the periodization of working on certain things? How am I going to go about it? And then the where am I going to be doing this? Is it going to be on the golf course? Is it going to be on the phone? Is it going to be on the range, inside doing some K-vest, whatever that is? So what I'll spend a little bit of time going through, and then I'll shoot it back to Christy, is kind of stepping through that who, what, when, how, and where am I going to do all that? And so the who part, like with the student, my first thing I would do is when a junior comes to me, and again, we're talking specifically about this age group and demographic. I want to play high school. I want to play college, D1 golf, etc. Have aspirations of playing the tour. This is that first thing that I know we all go through as coaches, is we're going through that interview phase of, all right, tell me what your goals are. If they're serious about it, and a lot of them express that I want to play at the highest level, I won't step out there with this question with all of them, but I will with some. I'll say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you want to be the best player in the world. 1, and this typically isn't this demographic, but it could be a kid that gets kind of, walks in and the parent wants them to do golf and they don't necessarily, but 1, you really don't want to be here, but your parent wants you to, play golf. Where are you on this? And a lot of them don't know, they're young, and that's going to change, but at least if they have kind of a number, and I'll kind of give them some ideas of what that is. 10 is, okay, this is the highest level. You're watching these guys on TV. This is the 10. They're shooting for the 10. These guys are the 10. A 7 is, you want to play college golf, but you want to maybe do something else in life. You're not quite sure. A 5 is, I think I want to do this. I think I want to play college golf, etc. So I just want to have an idea, and I'll throw that question out with them at times. But really, I'm also, as we all do, we're looking at kind of who are we dealing with. I mean, I'm looking at nationalities. You're looking at gender. You're going through all this process because everybody learns, and we all experience this. I have an Asian contingent of golfers that are juniors, and they have a little different level of certain focus concepts than other golfers. I mean, let's just be realistic there. And so that's going to be kind of that interview process of who am I teaching? Okay. And then I'll step into, let's talk about what am I going to do? What am I going to teach? And so when I'm looking at that, I'm going to say it's the 5 C's, right? I'm trying to go, okay, we're going to try to, or manage, you can call it control or manage, but the 5 controls. I've got to help them control the golf course. I've got to help them control the golf ball. I've got to help them control the golf club. I've got to help them control what the body's doing. So these are all the matchups, and they all go together. And then ultimately a little bit of what's going on with the mental game, controlling that. So walking through that, how I would think of the golf course is, what are the physical influences that might influence how they play golf? Okay. Are they strong? Okay. Physically, are they not as strong? And that, yeah, it's gender type, but that's different, because you're going to have players that are much stronger than others, male or female. But how would that relate? Well, I mean, are you playing a golf course that has super thick rough? I mean, this just gives me ideas of how are they going to be able to navigate this golf course? Or there's a ball buried in soft sand. In Texas, we don't get that much, but they might have to hit that shot a little bit differently than somebody who has strengths. How much speed do they have? That's going to affect course management. So that's kind of how I look at some of the golf course stuff from a physical influence. The other would be like a mental influence, right? And this is where I get a little bit deeper into knowing the person. I'll have them, I think we talked maybe a few weeks ago about the topic came up on, the mental game. And one thing I do is take them through, not everybody, but some, personality assessment through Golf Psych, and that kind of gives me a blueprint, a little bit of who am I dealing with. At that age, certainly things can change a little bit, but there's going to be that mental influence of how they might navigate through a golf course. And then we have kind of the environmental influences, like what's going on with the golf course, what's the weather, all of that. So those are how I would go about thinking of golf course control. Then we get into golf club. I want them to kind of understand the basics of, well, let's talk golf ball first. What's going on with the ball? What are they doing with the ball? What's their stock shot? All that stuff I want them to kind of understand. And then as they get to a higher level, I want them to understand, we have, a lot of us have TrackMan and stuff like that. And certainly we don't want to dive into all the numbers with that, but I do want them to understand some of the basics. I think it's super important as they get to that higher level of junior golf that they aren't flying blind. I don't think they need to know everything. And certainly there are some juniors that can process a little bit more than others or need to know more than others. But I do think that they need to understand some of the basics of ball flight laws. And that means what's going on with the club face, what's going on with the path, what influences the path, swing direction, angle of attack, how is the face contact, going to change things, and toe and heel strike and all that. Because the thing is they're savvy now. I mean, they have the internet, they have Instagram, they have all this stuff. So you're going to get questions anyway, and so they need to know some of the basics there. So I talked to them a little bit about ball control, and as far as then moving into the club control, what's going on with their club face and stuff like that, and the path and the wrist angles. And so some of the basics there, I want them to understand. And then talking to about the body, right? So the body, you have the club and you've got the golf ball. And so with the body, what setup are they going to work with for them? Grip type, all of that. And then how are the basic wrists, the three sections of the body, the wrist and the hands, what's going to go on there with their grip. I want them to at least understand what they have. Not every one of them needs to know as much. How do the arms play the role in the golf swing? And then how does the body move, the pivot, everything else? So you got those three sections, the hands, wrist, the arms, and then everything else. And so that's the four things of the control. Then we move into the mind and work into the mental game. So that's how I'm thinking of, like, what am I going to work on now at that higher level junior? They're going to be at a place where I'm moving deeper into specialty shots around the greens, distance wedges, making sure that they understand what it takes. I mean, talking to college coaches over the years, I mean, that's certainly, if you polled most of them and you said from a technical standpoint, where are high school golfers coming into college the weakest, they would probably tell you, not all, but I would say a vast majority would tell you they're not that good with wedge play. I mean, not to the level that they need to be. And so I think that's an important progression that they really get good at, which is controlling wedges and then having some concept of what they need to do to get the trajectory where they need to get it, and they don't all need the same system. But just to real quickly talk about a couple systems that I might use. One would be a simple reference to the body. Okay, so I would call it a hip high, above hip, mid torso kind of reference of where they turn back to and where their arms are. And that body reference would give them a certain carry distance. And then that would be kind of used throughout the different wedges. Another system I use for players that are pretty good technique already, but I want to try to get it improved a little bit more to tighten up the distance control even more, would be what I'd call the gear system. Now, I got a lot of the gear system from Chuck Cook back in the day, who worked with Tom Kite, and Kite being a great wedge player, obviously. He related to gears. Gear one would be just the body turn with no wrist cock or trail arm fold. So essentially arms extended. Most of us can turn back and get the arms to go not quite to 9 o'clock. So that would be gear 1, and very good technique for under 30 yards. Certainly when you look at pros, you'll see them hit 30-yard shots with all 3 gears, meaning arm fold and wrist cock. But that doesn't mean it's the best on paper to do for energy. So players that get too handsy, I'll kind of work them in gear 1 for shorter wedge shots. And then gear 2 is the turn of the body and the bending or folding of the trail arm with limited wrist cock. The only amount of wrist cock would be what's at address, which is going to be if there's arm hang and you're not setting up like Bryson, you're going to have some hinge at address. I do think your best distance wedge players personally are in gear 2 when they hit distance wedges. I see it. I see that they control the distances the best within tight yardages, and they don't have a lot of set of the wrist. And then you get into gear 3, which is wrist set. And so I'll work some of that gearing with them. So that's kind of how I would go about the who and the what. I don't want to take too much time. We can get into the periodization, how I would do that and where I do that. And I'll come back to that. But Christy, I'm going to shoot it back to you and we'll kind of go back and forth on that.
Brech, that's awesome, because this is a perfect segue into how I would go from 4 years to 12 years. Because a 4-year-old and a 13, 14, 15-year-old showing up on Brech's tee deck, I mean, most people, when I say 4-year-old, they're like, hell no, there's no way I'm teaching a 4-year-old golf. Well, it's not golf. It's golf adjacent. We're not teeing up on the tee box and we're not playing to the green. Do we have a golf club in our hand? Absolutely. Do we have a golf ball that we're trying to hit? Sometimes we're hitting, inflated beach balls. Sometimes we're hitting tennis balls. Sometimes, we're just swinging at sand. It's okay. But the point is that 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds are learning by exploring. They're not learning by, here's the grip, overlap, interlock, 10-finger, you choose. Heck no, we're split grips. We're left hand low. We're hold it however you want. I don't care. Let's just try to hit the golf ball, right? And we have interesting targeting. Are we using hold? Yes, absolutely. Sometimes we're hitting into buckets. Sometimes we're trying to knock stuff down. When you get into the 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old boy category, they're completely into destruction. Okay, that's all they want to do is hit things really hard and destroy anything they can. So developing targeting for them to where they can absolutely knock something out of something else, blow something up, that brings them back. Girls, a little bit different. Don't get me wrong. There's some girls who like destruction, and that's okay. Meshing them together is really crazy and fun. So obviously when I have a 4 and 5-year-old on my deck, and just to be clear, I don't go more than 4 at a time. 4, maybe 5, depending on the kids. I can, because I'm lucky and I'm at a club where I know all the families, I can place the kids in groups and know what characters work well together. But if you're in an academy situation to where you don't know the kids who are coming, I would definitely not go more than 4. When I get into the 6 to 12-year-olds, you can go a little bit more kids. I go 6 to 1. That's my max. It's important because the way that a 6 to 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old learns, they're starting to develop their skills, whether they want to or not. You're sneaking the coaching in. They're more interested in the teaching moments than a 4 and 5-year-old. So you can tailor what you're doing with them to sneak the golf in. Are we focusing more on grips and the fundamentals of the golf swing, the direction of the club face, why the ball goes high, why the ball goes low? Absolutely. But we're not standing in a line and talking about it. We're allowing them to explore, creating situations to where they can ask questions, because once they show an interest, the train has left the station and you're good to go. If you're constantly focusing with someone who's struggling on how to make it better, some kids don't care. They just want to hit and hit and hit and have fun and, do their thing. Other kids have questions, and you just have to mesh and mimic what they're doing so they can feel the control in the situation. So definitely more teaching moments in the middle range. Once they hit the 12 to 14, there's more self-motivation. They're more focused on performance. Individual outcomes are way more important than to a 6, 7, 8-year-old. Individual outcomes in 12 to 14 are way more important than having fun. I mean, you know the golf kids, they are in it to win it, and they will at all costs do whatever they have to do. So more explicit instruction once they hit 12 years old versus open exploration. And that's as long as you embrace that and understand it, your program can grow and flourish and have the kids keep coming back. Brech, you mentioned the C's that you use. I have 4 C's too. And this is for summer camps. This is for after school juniors. My 4 C's are collaboration, community, conflict, and competition. If I can incorporate all 4 of those into any style of programming that I have with the kids, there's generally success for the majority of the kids. Now, is every kid going to be, God, I love this, I can't wait to come back? Heck no. But if my attrition rate for the kids coming back, and I have kids, and I know that my screen didn't work. I wish you could have seen that kid. There were, I think, 12 kids in that class, and we had 6-on-6 competition. And out of all of those 12 kids, I believe one of them is actually, hey, golf is. The other kids, they're riding horses, they're playing soccer, they're doing cheerleading. Some of them don't do any sport. This is just what they do after school, and that's okay with them. They don't want to go any further. They don't want me to fix their grip. They just want to hit the ball and have fun with their friends. And that's okay, because in 20 years from now, if they had a good golf experience, they'll keep playing. They'll be the weekend players. And that's what golf means to me. If your goal, if Sally's goal or Ben's goal is to play college golf, and Sally's goal is to, I just need to kill time because my mom wants me to do this, I want that experience to be appropriate and correct for them individually. And it doesn't have to be the same. It can't be the same experience. So I teach, like I said, bottom up, not top down. And I feel like junior golf programming, when I grew up, I've been playing my whole life, was definitely top down. You know, here's how you hold the club, and you're going to stand here for 20 minutes, you know, trying to get the ball airborne with no understanding of how it does it, why it does it, and is it even fun to do it? Brech mentioned the grip. It's definitely the number one, right? I assess more grips from 12 years old and up than I assess anything else. Again, I said it 4 to 5. I don't care how they hold it. And I practice with them. I have junior clubs that have huge amounts of duct tape. So the grip looks like this. I have it where it's really thick on top and really small on the bottom and reverse. And so they all get to practice, whether they're little or big. And I use that age-wise. We have competitions where a 12-year-old who's a golf kid has to hit shots with a grip that looks like this and split grip, so they can explore outcomes that aren't regular golf. All that does is it expands their minds. It expands their ability to be creative. It's interesting when I play or have challenges with the older kids. I have a middle school group that we meet twice a week. And hey, hi. Dan, how are you? Hey, everybody. This is Dan Smith. He's our club manager.
Hello. How are we doing?
Well, I'm good.
Good.
How are you?
Excellent.
Awesome.
Count some inventory.
Oh, perfect. Oh, I have to do that too after I'm done. Sorry about that. I thought I was going to be here by myself. Anyway, back to the 12 to 14s who, I don't know if you guys have this experience, but they have opinions and they're really proud of their abilities and they know that they're the best. And so I like to put them in situations to where they are absolutely challenged to have to be out of the zone, out of their zone, out of their comfort zone. I send them out to the golf course very frequently to have 4 club challenges. Very frequently, they have to even holes play even clubs, odd holes play odd clubs, right? I'm constant in a challenge game situation with the kids because I think it's important for them to think outside the box. I do that with the 4-year-olds because they don't know what the box is. I think the older kids, as they get older and stay in the game, they stay on the railroad and they never get off. And it's important to me that they love what they're doing and enjoy the challenge. They are the motivated kids who are going to keep going. No, they fall off. I mean, Brett brought up some really good points about why they're there and what's motivating them. We see that from the very beginning. If we can keep them on the train and keep them interested, which is my only goal at every level, I think that's the key. Recognizing why kids stop playing golf. Again, I mentioned before that if it's not fun and it's not social, they don't have friends doing it. If golf is too hard for them, they're going to quit. So finding success and what it means to them if they can be successful, whatever that goal is. If it's just hitting the ball through the target or knocking the blocks off the platform, then that's okay. And that's what makes my job great is as long as they walk away happy, that's all that matters to me. Hope that makes sense. I mean, I think it does. All of my programming with the juniors, not competitive juniors, but everybody else is game-based. I mean, absolute games. Games. We're playing from the minute they show up to the minute they leave. There's no stop. The games change throughout. We don't go more than 10, 15 minutes in one game. We do have one class game and they request it every time. And it was in the video that I showed. And it's a full class game. It lasts 45 minutes. And they beg for it every time. And there's chipping involved, putting involved, destruction, knocking things down, elevation, trajectory. They don't know what trajectory is, but they know what it is by the end, right? So when I say games and we're playing, it's not time killers. It's actual instruction that's happening and developing it on their own. Oh, yes. Ginger, I see your message. I would be happy to share the games. I would happy to, and in fact, this is something we could do on the side because I don't want to, take up Brech's time or both or anybody else's questions and whatnot. We could set up a separate time to where we could talk about it and, get in a call just like this and Zoom, and I can share my screen and we can talk about all that stuff. Because like right now I'm getting ready to plan my season, and my spring season is going to be completely planned out with every game we're ever going to play. And the kids are going to show up and they're going to ask for specific ones. And I know what those are. And we wait till the very end. We make them keep coming back and then play new ones, and they have favorites. And so it's good. I appreciate the question and we'll definitely talk. Anybody else? Question? Brech?
All right. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Sorry.
Okay. Did you have a question for me?
Um,
Were you passing it back?
no, I do because you and I, we share some kids who have come, and I'm curious, and this is a personal question, how many changes, how much change has to happen for some of these kids? Because I see them every day and I know who they are. And I'm going to give one example. Kate Pickerel, her golf swing is unbelievable right now. And the impact that you've made with her has been tremendous. And she works really, really hard. And I see her more than you see her, but you're the one that's helping her make the changes that are necessary. And I don't know if you guys know Kate Pickerel or have heard the name. Last 2021 was like a breakout year for her. was it like 3 wins in a row, 4 wins in 5, something like that. That was incredible. But can you talk about the process with her?
Yeah, I'll do that. So I think, with her, it was kind of more just getting her kind of dialed in with kind of controlling a ball flight and getting her swing to where her club face had a little bit more control, and essentially getting her to be on plane. And that's actually a good segue into kind of where I would talk now. I'm glad you brought that up because, when I mentioned kind of like what's my process that I might go with a junior, and I said, it's the who am I teaching? I want to know what am I going to do with them? When am I going to work with what, kind of the periodization, and then how would I go about that? And then where is this all going to take place? And in that process, I try to have my staff kind of follow a little bit. But I talked earlier about the who and the what, and now briefly touch on the when, and I think that will kind of be a good segue with Kate, is kind of the periodization. I know you talked about the periodization of how you go about the young juniors. I think that's fabulous. The whole gamification. I mean, we all still play games. It just turns from like games into competitions, into gambling and all that, right? I mean, that's the fun part of golf. But how I would look at kind of the periodization from a little different angle than yours, to talk about something different, which would be like, what are the learning stages along that 10,000 hours, to become mastery? I think probably it's more than 10 years for golf. I think some studies have been more like 15 to 17,000 hours in this game to get to the highest level. So it takes a while, but I think there's 5 phases that most golfers go through. Okay. The first one would be early on, you're learning to make contact with the ball. Okay. Setup. How do you hold it? Where's your body in space? What's your setup? How do you set up to it? Posture, all that. Then you get into how am I going to get this ball in the air? And all the games are great to do that. But what does that take? I mean, that takes low point concepts. It takes, how to hit the ball first, divot second with an iron. What's the difference on a tee? And I give them some vitamin drills for that. What I called kind of the daily vitamins of here's your non-negotiables. And certainly I would be happy to share that with anybody later on. I think the third phase for juniors, for me, it's kind of a balance. It's always like distance or direction. Well, I think it's probably more distance because I think obviously the game has changed. So I think Greg Rose said it with TPI. It's certainly easier to turn an athlete into a golfer than a golfer into an athlete, right? And so that's all that cross-pollination of different sports. But I think distance is more important. I can get somebody that can bomb it. I can get the geometry down, but it takes longer to get somebody who's kind of dinked it out there for a long time to go through speed training and all that. So I would put with juniors a little bit more of grip it and rip it before I'd worry too much about where it goes. I think the fourth thing is going to be the direction concept. And I think it's very important for most kids, even though the game has changed and the old fades are not like granddad's old fades with a lot of balls that wouldn't go anywhere. I think fades are okay now, but I think it's very important for juniors to go through that fourth phase of that periodization, which is most of them need to learn to draw the ball. Most of them need to understand sequencing, how to come from the inside, how to lag it, even if it gets a little too into out and flippy, get the ball turning over, build in those fundamentals. And then the fifth phase of that periodization is you spend the rest of your life straightening it out, right? And so you're always trying to get better. Does that mean you're going to try to tighten the draw? Does that mean you're going to go to the other side and fade it? And like with Kate, she was big into outslinger early on, jumping on her toes, doing things. Her hands were running away. I call that kind of a CF pattern where the hands kind of fling away and you got to turn it over and flip it. And so that's that fifth area where it's now time to go, okay, let's get this junior into this. How do you spend the rest of your life straightening it out? And I kind of call that moving them more towards a CP type release, or moving the hands or the hub path of the hands more in and around and controlling it with a tighter exit, more of a body release than just an arm and hand release. And so I got that CFCP term back in the day, just the terminology from Mac O'Grady. Chuck a little bit, but Mac those were really some Mac terms, and certainly they've been around probably for, before Mac, but Mac O'Grady kind of coined that, at least in my mind, CFCP pattern. And so I won't expand too much on that, but I think that's how I'd go about the periodization of looking at a junior as, contact, airborne, distance, direction, and then the orthodoxy of what I would try to change to make it more efficient and control the ball flight. And then I think also that when is all that periodization, and Christy talked about it, is when are those windows of trainability? When are you going to nail all that speed stuff? When are you going to nail the skill development? When are you going to nail all of those things that go with those windows? I think, TPI called it the 5 S's. You're training stamina, strength, speed. I think I got it written down, skill and suppleness. So those are the TPI terms. And by the way, that long-term athletic development, there's certainly many countries that have great programs. If you're kind of wanting to know more about what all that means, I think TPI is a good place to start with that whole process of long-term athletic development. And I know with Christy doing the thing she's doing with Richard Franklin and all that, and the whole angle they're going is fantastic. So that's kind of the who, the what, the when, and then the how. How would I go about it? I think that's just now getting into the teaching styles. And like I said earlier, or how am I going to take this student and work with them? And I think you got to get to know the student, right? And I think this was maybe a few weeks ago when Jim Hardy was on, and he talked about you have to be a chameleon as a coach. I completely agree with that. We're dealing with so many different personalities and people, and to get to know them, we've got to kind of navigate through being a chameleon to kind of communicate with them. And so I do think a good place to start with that, just because that's some of my background. I think there's plenty good directions you can go with it, but that's golf psych. I mean, they're down the road in Bernie. I've done hundreds of personality assessments with players, not all just juniors, I mean, adults too. And it gives you kind of a good blueprint. Most are receptive to do it. And they call it the 8 champion traits. And when you look at the 8 champion traits through Deborah Graham's research, I think there's a lot of value you can glean from that personality assessment. So as an example, I've got 2 students that are just completely opposite. One certainly more left-brained and one more right-brained, and I'll mention the names, they don't care. Jay Holland Humphreys he's at SMU, and then Sean Carl Dobson is going to Stanford in the fall. And you're talking just totally opposite. One is so far right-brained, one is a little more left-brained. I think you're trying to always balance the two a little bit. I think when you look at that and you go, well, what's some examples of right brain? Well, I mean, my guess would be, if you go back in the day, it would be like, look at a Sam Snead or look at a Payne Stewart, Ben Crenshaw. You've got maybe Trevino, although I know he's very knowledgeable about the technical part, but I would glean and guess that those are more right brain players. And then you go into the left brain and you go, okay, like a Nick Faldo or a Tom Kite or a Ben Hogan, right? And then you have maybe some that you felt were like a little more balanced, like Tiger. I would call him pretty balanced, right? Would be my guess. Like a Phil Mickelson, he'd be a little more right-brained, and maybe Furyk, although his golf swing is certainly right-brained. Not that he ever got into changing that too much, but he just goes about golf what seems like a little more left-brained. So I think it's super important on the how to teach, kind of getting to know the student, and then how are you going to cue them to make certain changes, whether it's putting, chipping, full swing. It was interesting. Chuck Cook, this was, 20 years ago. He told me when I first started working with him, he said, back when he worked for Golf Digest, they did a poll. They went around to all these major winners, all these tournament winners, and they said, okay, you won these big tournaments. What were you thinking about? What swing thoughts did you have or did not have when you were coming down, in the back nine or through the heat of the battle or throughout the whole tournament? And it was interesting because it fell in basically 4 categories, right? Some thought primarily of only the target, okay, target only, third eye, the whole deal. No, everything that a sports psychologist would say. Some thought of ball flight, okay, saw the shape, felt the shot. You can imagine Tiger working with Haney, kind of the feel of the shot, and all those practice swings. Some thought of what the club was doing, some part of the club, and some thought of some body part, what the body was doing. So the point is, it's all over the map. I don't believe that you have to play golf mindless and thoughtless. I think some people do better with that. Some people need a little bit of a thought or two. Certainly, I don't want to get into that rabbit hole of overthinking and all that, but I don't think everybody is the same. So that's part of the discovery process of how am I going to decide how I'm going to go about navigating, how I'm going to work with this student, and what kind of tools in my toolbox do I need for that. And then I'll kind of wrap it up. I know we're kind of getting down to the wire here on kind of like where. The where is just something that is pretty basic. Like, where am I going to spend my time the most at this particular time throughout this process with this student? Is it going to be hooking them up to KBest to do some quarterly or half a year check-in baseline stuff? Is it going to be I'm on the phone doing text like I'm always doing? They're at a tournament. Okay, what am I going to tell this student? Because whatever I tell him, it's got to be so soft in the thought of any feel or whatever. I can't get into much. Is it going to be on the range? Is it, video? So the line of communication is always going to be based on also where are you, because where are they? Because that's going to be different. I mean, you've got to navigate through that whole process. So anyway, that's kind of just a little basic kind of snippet of how I would go about my process with a student on that who, what, when, how, and where am I going to work with them. So anyway, that's about what I have to say at this moment. I'll throw it back to either Christy or Alan, and we'll go from there.
Christy, you have anything else?
No, I think we sparked a really good discussion between the two of us and some really good information. Do you have any questions, Alan?
I do. Yeah. So first off, I would say is I love the synergy between the two of you. Being in different facilities, obviously you have your own businesses, and obviously you're close enough to each other. But I love the fact that you can find a team even outside of your own team at your club. And I think if there's one thing that I'm hoping happens more in all these talks and conversations that we have, is I hope more of that happens, because Christy is an absolute rock star when it comes to getting, what do we say, that golf experience that gets our kids hooked on the game and gets them loving the game and having fun and being interactive and all those things, and realizing that, I guess, one of my questions was going to be, how do you manage the parents in your programs? Because they obviously look very, very different, where, we got parents that come in thinking their kid's going to be the next great player. But at the end of the day, if we're not doing what Christy does first,
Right,
I think their love for the game is never going to be there, which means they can excel. I mean, we see it happen all the time, but I don't know. I think you would agree that if we don't have that love and that kind of want for the game ourselves, it's just
no, absolutely. I mean, I think if anybody has a passion in their life, it's because they loved it first. You have to love something to want to expand your interest in it. What piques your interest in golf? Some kids, and we know who they are, some kids just show up and they love it, right? My dad dropped me off at the local clinic when I was 8 and said, here, do this. Golf is good. You should, and I was good at every sport. So I showed up and I was good at it. So I naturally had an interest, but it was really intriguing to me. It's a long story. We don't have to get into it about why I fell in love with it. And not every kid is going to love it. But if they have any sort of interest in it, Brech made a good point on the distance versus direction. Direction from the very beginning, that's why we make huge targets. Try to hit it into the sand trap. It's massive. Because the only thing that matters from day one is distance. All day, every day. And like I said, the boys 7 to 10, 11, destruction, complete destruction. The only way they can destroy anything is to hit it really hard and really fast. So if I hit a 4-year-old something, we're trying to hit it hard. None of this, oh, let's try and control it. Let's go slower. Let's try to get the club face on it. Bull crap. As fast as you can, let's get the club face on it. Hal Sutton will tell you over and over again, if he could do it differently, he would go speed first, not control first. And I think that's a true testament. And I think if we're not focusing on that, the kids, are not going to have fun, right? Nobody wants to hit slow wedges. I mean, it's just not fun. Anyway, rabbit hole, big rabbit hole.
So, and I agree with that. And I think that you got to find where those juniors and those players fit in. So so I got 2 questions for the 2 of you. One, how do you manage parents? How do you set the expectations really early on what's going on? And then the next one would be is how do you not how do you assess, but how often do you find that kid that's maybe of a advanced skill level? So it's like, how do you level your kids? Is it just by age, or are you leveling by skill and age? It's combining the 2.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I'm going to jump in first. I think the majority of parents are realistic on their kids' abilities and their futures. There's always a couple. And when I have those parents, and we're talking advanced level players, there's a guy on Twitter, Lou Stagner. Anytime he posts a chart, I read it and I'm like, God, that's going in my book, because I just think if you show them factual evidence of what's happening in the world related to golf and exactly how hard it is, bringing them back down to earth is usually all it takes. Now, when we're talking about the parents who are dropping their kids off because they want their kids, whatever age, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they want their kids to be elite players. Well, what do the kids want? What's best for the kids? You know your kids better than I do. I'm going to learn about your kids and I'm going to get to know them. And then we'll shift their direction based on their interest level. So I've had to have some conversations. I've had parents pull their kids out of my programming because it was too fun. They need more work. They don't need more fun. And I'm like, okay, we'll do more work. Well, the kid doesn't play golf anymore because the parents maybe didn't embrace the fact that they needed fun. I'm sorry, a 7-year-old needs to do it a little bit differently unless they're an outlier. Little Tiger Woods shows up, totally different story. We're not playing goofy games because that's not what little Tiger wants to do. He wants to be elite. I shift him right into the older group and he's with 12-year-olds and they're out there grinding it out together. Dog fights, right? I have little guys with big guys in that area. But if little Tiger doesn't want to get his feelings hurt or isn't at the level, he's right in with the other 12-year-olds who have never played golf before. It's ability based and personality based versus age based, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, based on the program that you run, we run that program as well. And if you really pay attention to, a lot of the parents come in and they see all this fun happening and they're like, oh, there's not enough work going on there. But if they really sat there and listen first or watch for a second, they'll realize that if you get the games and the programs right, they'll put club face on ball far more times in that kind of program than they ever do into the
with really, really limited coaching but really pointed and important times when you see the frustration, you jump in, make a little tweak, talk about why, super quick. Okay, get back after it and let's have fun. I think that something that I want to point out and make clear is that when I have big groups, I'm talking 24 kids. We don't just throw kids together in a random pot. When I make groups, some days it's random, some days it's really targeted. I need these 6 boys to be together because they're at the same level, the same personalities, the same destructive base. You throw one little girl in with that who's not in that personality range, she's destroyed. So we'll assess, and don't get me wrong, we have the killer instinct girls too, and we'll throw them in with the boys all day and they love it, but you have to understand the kids in front of you. So when we take 24 kids, it's not just like, okay, you 12 over here and you 12 over there. I really, quickly in my mind think about the personalities and their ability levels and their skill levels, and then parcel them out that way into small groups so they can have a more enjoyable experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Brech, you got anything you want to add?
No, I think that's good. I think it comes down to, the programming, basically being that I'm in an academy, just the term academy kind of sets us on a little different trajectory with what we do. We certainly have the younger age group, and the benefit of what we can do with our younger programs is with, like, let's say our level 1, which is our younger age group. And that's the whole question. It's always the debate of, is it age or skill based? And I think it's definitely a little more heavily weighted towards skill, but in the same respect, I'm not going to put a 7-year-old in a 14-year-old age group. So it's always going to be a balance there. And what I would say is, what we have the benefit of doing is, if we took that smaller age group, we can kind of see and within that make our small pods of what direction we would go, because we have multiple teachers that can go a little bit more down that line of the brighter noodles, the fun. And by the way, I think all the younger age group need the color, the noodles, the brightness of and I know Christy has, I've seen pictures of what you have going on, and just like a playland out there. I think that's awesome, and that's so important for the younger kids as they go through that kind of early phase up into the preteen and then adolescence, and how you would change all of that. But I think your second thing was like on the parenting. It's tricky because, specifically talking about the parents of the juniors that, and I deal with a lot of them that have aspirations. And I kind of go back to that, that question of like, where are you on this linear line of a scale of 1 to 10, and where's your parent, and is this for you? I want to be really open and honest with them, and I want them to be honest with me. Is this, who is this really for? And we've all dealt with the parents that are a little bit, I have a lot of great parents, but certainly there's the overbearing parents, there's the helicopter parents, and the ones that are trying to live vicariously through their kids, all that stuff that we've dealt with. And you're managing that. It's like the CEO of managing this thing, and it's tough at times. I won't get into specific things, but it's something that you're always managing, you're always working on it. But as long as you keep reiterating to not just the junior, but the parents, that it's 100% about the kids and what is in their best interest and what they want. And they kind of help us, me, the teacher, and certainly the parents, navigate through the waters of kind of the pace that they're on. That's what's important. And you got to set those expectations out pretty early for the parents to kind of let them know, because a lot of them don't know. They just don't know. And that's where I also think, from a high school to college level, some really good college recruitment advisors come in really handy, of what it takes. And I certainly refer to a few that I use because that's their wheelhouse. They know all about the schools and and been to hundreds of them and can talk to you all about the different aspects of the golf of golf and the school and the coaches, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a tough field that you're always kind of working through, but you know, for the most part, I would say 95% of the time the parents are great, right? So you're just dealing with a few here or there that are a little bit more overbearing.
Brech, I think you bring up a really good point in our industry, is that I know that I can't be an expert at every aspect of golf at any level. I can't do it all. So I have zero problem, and I wish more people felt the same way, that I have no problem sending my players to other coaches for whatever their need is. That just makes you stand out, and you're part of a team versus a me and you kind of thing. So
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Well, does anybody else have any questions before we get off? So, Christy, Brech, really appreciate both of you coming on and doing this. This is awesome stuff. It's very obvious to see why you're both rock stars and great at what you do, and you know, everybody has nothing but great things to say about you. Again, hoping this kind of creates some talk and some synergy between coaches, realizing that we're all here for the same thing. We love golf, probably first we do, and if we can start transferring some of that over to these kids by making it fun, and quite honestly, most of us have been in the golf business long enough to where we've got the old conventional ways that we do our junior programs, which look like that picture that Christy had at very first. And they probably need to start transferring over into some of the other programming that's more gamified and more fun and really creates a love into the game. And because of that, if we can get those kids loving it, well, there's also going to be a lot more of those kids that have that potential of being great and better players. And again, there's room in that for everyone. We have to be able to do that at the club level and get them going there first, and then who knows where they go.
well, you know, and just one, I'm not certain how many people are in this call who are attached to a golf club or a golf course versus an academy, but something that I found really interesting as I kind of gone through this journey and did some research on my own is that at golf courses or clubs or in that environment, lesson takers spend more money at the club versus non-lesson takers. So more F&B sales, more merchandise sales, more time at the club for their entire family brings the bottom line in your value to your facility, makes it so much higher. You know, so not only are you growing your programming, but you're bringing in more money for your facility also.
Those are all good things, right?
All good things.
Where it's
Yep.
not.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both. And if neither one of you have anything else, we'll let it kind of end here. Scott, do you have anything?
Christy, Brech, just want to say thank you again. Alan, thank you for getting all this set up. A great morning of education. This was recorded. We'll have it up on the website here by the end of the week in case anybody wants to jump back in and watch it again and catch up a few more snippets of information. And then just making sure everybody's aware, the STPJ annual meeting is next Monday, Tuesday. We have until this Wednesday as the registration deadline. So jump on stpj.com and get registered.
Thank you for the opportunity, guys. Great chat. And
Thank you, Scott. Thank you,
definitely
Alan.
reach
Thank you,
out.
Scott.
Yeah, reach out if you have any questions, additional questions. Ginger, we'll get together and talk.
Enjoyed it, Christy. Nice seeing you.
Thank you, Brech.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Well done.
Thank you, everyone.